Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Leverton on Everything podcast. Yesterday, I took my daughter to see Fantastic Four First Steps, and I gave it 7 out of 10. I'll tell you why in a moment, but yeah, my daughter has been a Marvel fan for a very long time, maybe 4 or 5 years now, and so she always goes to see the latest Marvel movie. We saw Thunderbolts together, and this one, I don't think we saw Captain America together. But yeah, we saw those two together, and also it was kind of a special time for us because she'll be gone for the next 3 weeks to camp. I wasn't crying or anything, although I could cry if I think about it. I just had a Coke, and then yeah, that was the result of that. So, ba 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 ba. What did I think about Fantastic Four First Steps? As I said, 7 out of 10, and this movie has been in competition with Superman, and I think that this movie had a lot more money behind the marketing than Superman. And Superman, I think, is really beating it at the box office, which is a shame because I also gave Superman a 7 out of 10. And 7 out of 10 doesn't mean bad, it means like really good. It's not 10 out of 10 because there are parts about both movies I didn't like, which I'll get into in a moment. But I think the it's really interesting why two good movies have failed, or one no, well, yeah, I meant like Thunderbolts and this one because they are good movies, but I think it's not a question because there's always this thing about superhero fatigue, and as somebody whose favorite genre of movie has been comic book movies from way back, way before the MCU. Like, I grew up with Batman 1989. That's the kind of movie I like. So I'm kind of interested in this idea that comic book movies will kind of go the way of westerns. And I really don't think so, actually. Because 1989, that wasn't the first comic book movie to be super successful. The first one was in 1979 with Superman, right? With Christopher Reeve. So that's like the very first super successful one. And then they made a sequel to that, and then there was some worse movies, and then Batman franchise had successes and failures, and then the X-Men came along that had successes and failures, and then MCU came along and has had successes and failures, and DCU came along, successes and failures. So I don't think that comic book movies will ever kind of go away. I think that as long as comics exist, and I hope that they exist for a long period of time, I think that there will be more comic book movies, and it's great because, as I said, I like the genre. Okay, but back to the movie. What did I specifically think about it? It looks great. This aesthetic that it has, I don't think that there is any Marvel movie that has the same thought put into how it looks. I think the only thing that's similar from Marvel would be the Loki series with the TVA and like that kind of like retro 70s vibe. So this is really, really good. And I like also, so obviously there's CGI in this movie, but a lot of the things where previously they would have used CGI were real practical effects. Like they had like a Fantastic Four car. Oh, spoilers, by the way. They had a Fantastic Four car and like a baby seat that was real, and they had like helmets that had like the Fantastic Four logo on it, and those were real helmets. The suits that they were wearing were real. So I think that when Marvel started with Iron Man, the suits were real, and then they were like, oh, they're uncomfortable, and so we'll just make it CGI. No one will be able to tell the difference, but you can tell the difference. Yeah. And also, I like the way that they thought about how the world should look, because it's my daughter and I were talking about what time this is supposed to be set in, and I said that it was set in the 60s and 50s, but with much more advanced technology. And she thought maybe it was like present day, but they still kept all of the vibes and the aesthetics from the 50s or 60s. I don't know, but it looks really, really good and really well thought out. There are like advertisements for Canada Dry, like old school ginger ale kind of thing. So it's good. And even so, Galactus was didn't really fit the vibe, but the Silver Surfer, I know it's not like the Silver Surfer, it's a different one. But that character, I think what's interesting is that she looks like if if they had made a fantastic movie in the 50s or 60s with modern technology, they would have made it look like that. So I think that's a really interesting choice from a special effects point of view. So they really put a lot of thought in this movie. The special effects pushed the story forward, and it wasn't like overwhelming the amount of special effects has as it has been in some other films or other Marvel films. And I'm thinking about Ant-Man and Quadromania. Not that the special effects were great, but they were like, "Oh, look at the special effects. Don't think about the plot," you know. But here the plot was very front and center. Another thing is like, it really felt like the movie was flowing and there were not like a lot of breaks. So you clearly saw like point A to point B to point C to point D. And even if some things were predictable, like sometimes you know where there's going to be, I don't know what it's called in storytelling, but you have like a situation where the heroes have almost solved everything, and then you know that it's not going to work because the movie's not over. So you know it's not going to work, and then they actually figure out how things should be successful. So in this particular movie, that point is when they have like they want to transport the planet, they want to teleport the planet, and you really think that it could work, and then it doesn't work because there's a Silver Surfer attack. But it's also good how the story is like Reed Richards is the one who has like the intellectual, like he's the intellectual core of the group. He's like this brilliant scientist, but it's not just him coming up with a great idea. Like they work together, and in this movie, I know he's not like technically a linguist, but linguistics saves them. It's not physics that saves them; it's linguistics. So that's an interesting point of view as a former linguistic major, because there's this alien and the I forgot what his real name is, but the Human Torch, Johnny Storm, yeah, he figures it out because they. Oh, and that's great. That's a great point too. They actually are listening to these records. They don't have they don't have computers in the way that we think about them. Everything is analog. So he's listening to these records that have recorded the voices. Yeah, so it's great. The acting is pretty good. I mean, it's not like mind blowing. Like if you look at Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor portrayal, that's like I think it's a character defining portrayal, and there isn't anything like that. Even though this is the best Fantastic Four movie of all time, I mean it's not even close. But yeah, so there are two very good performances in here. One, of course, is Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, and the other is Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. And they have the two moments that I'm thinking about that are really good are the first moment is when Reed Richards is they have a baby, and he's talking to his baby, and he's like, it's just this honest conversation that if you've ever been a parent, you probably have had conversations with babies because they like when you're talking, but they don't really understand what you're saying. So he's basically saying like, I don't want you to be like me. I have a lot of problems. I have a lot of flaws. I'm not normal, and he's not over the top, but he's like showing how of an anxious character he is. Which as somebody who struggles with anxiety, I really like that. Um, and he says at the end, like, you can be who you want to be, and if you are like some intergalactic space baby god, just let me know. That will be okay too. So he's a very supportive dad, and that's great. And they have a very supportive family, even though they kind of like rib each other. And Sue Storm, Vanessa Kirby, is also great in this. There are a number of scenes where you could like point out where she does a great job. I think this dynamic between her and Reed is great, especially when there's a point where Galactus asks for their baby, and you know that Reed has thought about like that would be the easiest option, and he says something like, yeah, I can understand why the mob outside is upset. And Sue says something like, I understand you, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. So they're very mature in how they communicate with each other and about their feelings. So it's really, really great. So the writing was good, and the story made a lot of sense. As I said, it was perfectly paced. Um, what about the bad things? Well, the bad things is that this particular movie is not in the MCU. I guess it is part of the MCU, but they don't. It's a different world. And I think if they put this world, I can't see how they can put this world in the MCU without ruining it. Like, I think they could just make one movie, Fantastic Four movie, and this could be the definitive Fantastic Four movie, and not make another one for a while. You don't need a sequel, it's fine as it is. So I can't see that they would make anything better than this, actually. And the other negative thing, actually, I think I'm going to increase my rating here, not 7 out of 10. I'm going to give it like an 8 or 9 out of 10, because I did actually enjoy it. But the last thing I don't like about it is I have never liked Mr. Fantastic's power set, especially in movies. It looks ridiculous. In cartoons, it's okay because he's a stretchy guy, like what's her name in The Incredibles. It's fine in a cartoon, but in real life, it looks bad. And I thought that there was this point in Galactus where Galactus is like stretching him, and I thought he was going to go like that. And everybody in the theater probably thought that too, but he did not. So it's kind of a ridiculous power set. All right, that's what I thought about Fantastic Four First Steps. What did you think? Please leave your comments in the field below for comments. Bye-bye.